Okay, so this is another IELTS essay question that a student has shared me, and let me discuss its structure before discussing some of the mistakes that the student has made. Some people think that it would be better for large companies and industries to move to regional areas outside large urban centers. Do you think advantages outweigh disadvantages? Well, let us first understand this question. The question concerns that large companies and industries move to regional areas outside large urban centers. So the question revolves around this core that some companies or a lot of companies they move outside the urban centers. So as you understand, that cities often grow in size, and when cities grow in size, some large companies which were earlier outside the city, they become a part of the city, and they should move outside the city. Some people say that okay, this is good. Others think that there are some disadvantages. So there are two parts related to this question. First is this is good, let me call it G, and others say it is not good, let me call it NG. So how should your introduction be structured? So the introduction, as you all know, has an introductory statement, which I call general statement, and that general statement should be on the core of the topic. It need not be the entire restructuring or paraphrasing of the first statement, because the first statement itself contains the opinion. It is better. Okay, so and since you are mentioning advantages and disadvantages, so advantages means that it is better. Okay, disadvantages means that it's not better. It's not in fact good. Okay, so there is no need of mentioning that it is better in the introduction, in the opening statement. So the opening statement should focus only on this part. Large companies and industries move to regional areas outside of large urban centers. Okay, then you have the statement number one, or I should say advantages. Mention a few advantages. That is, here you mention whether it is that it is better. Okay, it's good that if they move outside these large urban areas, then you should mention disadvantages. Okay, and that's the end of your introduction. So when you mention advantages and disadvantages, just keep in mind what is your position, what is your opinion, and you need to mention your opinion in this. It needs to be integrated into advantages and disadvantages sentences. That okay, I think this has many advantages, such as this and this, whereas there are only a few disadvantages, such as this. Okay, so you should structure the sentence accordingly. And accordingly, you can mention whether there are more advantages or whether there are more disadvantages. Now, here, note that the question is, do you think? Okay, so there are three possible scenarios you can take: advantages more than disadvantages, um, advantages less than disadvantages, and advantages are equal to disadvantages. So you can mention it very clearly. Okay, I think this has more advantages than disadvantages. This has more disadvantages than advantages. And the number of advantages and disadvantages are almost the same. So you can take any position and defend it accordingly. Okay, based on this position, your answer will be structured. Okay, so let us come to some of the advantages here. What can be the possible, I'm sorry, I didn't change the color. I'm sorry. What can be the possible, oops, yeah, seems good now. What are the possible advantages of this scenario? Okay, if large companies move outside the urban centers, what are the possible advantages? Well, the first and the greatest advantage is in pollution reduction. Remember that whatever point you raise, you should explain it completely. How does it reduce pollution? Well, we are talking about urban pollution here. Urban areas such as New Delhi, New York, Beijing, Shanghai, they are very polluted. And part of that pollution comes from industries. So name a few urban areas. Name them. You can talk about Beijing, Shanghai, New Delhi, New York. Um, there are a number of places, and if these units move out of these urban areas, though the total pollution may still stay the same, but local urban pollution will fall, and this will make the air cleaner. It will make the air cleaner, and perhaps water pollution will also fall, and the well-being of people will improve. Okay, their overall lifestyle will improve. They will have fresh air to breathe if these units move outside the urban centers. What can be the second possible advantage? Well, secondly, the regional areas or rural areas, what we call these areas, are have cheaper labor, and these areas also um, lower prices of have lower land cost. So these companies need land to build their plants, build units, and they need labor to work in the plants. Since the cost of land and labor falls, their overall cost of operations, and the cost of overall production, it falls, and this can be easily transferred to the public, to the consumers, or this can also increase the profits of the company. So you should explain point number one and point number two completely before moving to the next idea, which is disadvantages. So what are possible disadvantages? Remember, if you are in favor of advantages, explain advantages more than disadvantages. If you're in favor of disadvantages, explain disadvantages more than advantages. And if you think they are equal, then you can write a balanced, equal number of points and equal number of words, almost equal number of words in both body paragraphs. Okay? So, what can be the possible disadvantages? Well, the first and the greatest disadvantage is that these plants, they sometimes lose skilled labor. Lose skilled labor. While you can find um, general labor, which is unskilled labor over here, it is much cheaper. Skilled labor is concentrated and in urban areas. Okay, so these companies, when they move out, they have to retrain people, or rather, instead of retrain, I should say that they train people. They have to train local people for working in their factories. Moreover, some of the skilled, not only laborers, but also some of the skilled white collar workers, they live in the city. So as a result, these workers have to either travel a lot or they shift occupations. So there is a skill gap. This creates a skill gap in the corporations. Okay. Secondly, what can be the second major disadvantage? Well, regional areas have weak infrastructure. They have weak transportation systems, electricity, even drainage. Sometimes drainage is a problem. So some industrial areas in developing countries, their drainage is a huge issue. Um, when the rains fall, the entire system is clogged, and this hampers production as well as transportation. Sometimes the infrastructure gets destroyed, electricity gets disrupted. Okay, so these are some of the infrastructural issues that you face in the regional areas that may again reduce the productivity, and both these reduce profits of companies, since they also reduce competitiveness. They reduce competitiveness of these companies which move outside the large urban centers. Okay. Having said this, this is the answer the student has written. You can click on the link below this video and read the answer. Um, well, the point I want to discuss is that the student has very well structured the answer. These are some of the disadvantages, as she has mentioned over here. And in body paragraph 2, she mentions advantages. That's on separate page. So that's fine. What I want to discuss over here is point number 1. The opening statement. What she has done is this is a pitfall for blindly paraphrasing the question statement. Now watch carefully. Some people assert that it is beneficial for large corporations and industries to move to rural areas from urban ones. In my opinion, the decision to relocate to rural areas is far more advantageous than drawbacks because companies can achieve economies of scale and can reduce footprint in cities. Remember, this is not a discuss both views essay. When you write discuss both views, there are usually two views in which you write some people believe this while others believe that, and then my opinion is this. Here, this is an opinion essay, and though you will not lose bands for this type of writing, this may prevent an appreciation in your score. So, if you really want to score better in opinion essays, try to avoid writing some people think that it is beneficial. Okay, so the core component is large corporations and industries move to rural areas from urban ones. So stick to this and then build cohesion. Okay, for example, this is what I've done over here. I've just stuck to the core of the essay. Many large corporations have moved away from urban areas to rural ones in the past few years. So I've not given whether this is beneficial or not because this is not discuss both opinions essay. Okay, so my opening statement is not necessarily a paraphrasing of the statement from the question. It is basically revolving around the core of the essay. In my opinion, this is far more beneficial or advantageous. What does this refer to? This refers back to the opening statement that, okay, many large companies are moving away from rural areas. Now you will note that if I mention some people assert that it is beneficial for this, I cannot use a cohesive device called this because then this will refer to benefits, okay, which is not what I wanted to say. So this should refer only to the actual fact, not the subjectivity. So what is the benefit or what are the disadvantages of facts? Those should move in the second sentence, not in the first sentence. Moreover, you will notice that finally, this is an important point, that the student has mentioned only advantages, has more advantages than drawbacks because companies can achieve this and that. So she has mentioned two advantages, number one, number two, with a clear opinion that, okay, there are more advantages than these drawbacks, but she has not mentioned the drawbacks. Okay, it's important to mention the drawbacks as well. Okay, so another structural issue which this essay faces is that she has written, I've not shown it over here, but she has given equal weightage in terms of writing paragraphs to both advantages and disadvantages. So this is on disadvantages, the next one is on advantages, and she has written almost equally on both of these, which is not recommended. So if you think that advantages are more than disadvantages, write less on disadvantages, okay? So write less. And here you need to write more. So this was my take on this essay. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and stay tuned for more interesting videos.